former principal at the Hazleton Area High School, passed away in November. Fran Libonati was a beloved teacher, coach, and athlete in our area who was a mentor to Los Angeles Angels manager Joe Madden and so many others, including Hazleton Area High School athletic director Fred Barletta. Barletta shared a few stories about Mr. Lib with me recently.
I was fortunate to have a lot of really good teachers, people that could do that job very well. But he absolutely was the best that I've ever seen. And it was his personality. He was not afraid to make the classroom a lively and fun place to be. There was still an awful lot of learning that took place in his room. I have to make sure everybody understands this. This wasn't that it was a free-for-all, but he just made everybody relax. He was an expert at making people laugh and smile in between teaching American history. And it was just a joy to be in his classroom. And I tell people this all the time. I never once thought about becoming an educator until I walked in his classroom. And after a little while, I said, if this is the way you can do it, I would love doing this. And, you know, people might not remember, he, besides being an outstanding educator, he was a great coach. He was also, in the early days of radio broadcasting on WAZL. And when you take a look, so many of the things that I ended up doing in my life actually were monitoring and mimicking what I grew up watching him do.
I'm just curious, what did he say at the end of his classes? You said there was something at the end of his obituary?
Well, yeah, if you read, there was a quote in there about what it took to be acknowledged as living a great life. And it's a wonderful quote. And he didn't say it every day at the end of class, but when we got toward the end of the school year, and it was time to, you know, go out of his class and move on, in this case from 11th grade to 12th grade, he gave us that quote. And it was one then I wanted to go look up and read it. And it summarizes, indeed, what is really the measure of success. And and this was the type of way he did things. And he would interject popular songs and music and movies and television and things that we know. He could relate them to different things in American history. In fact, he told me one time, he laughed. We were in the hallway. I said something, it was about naming the new high school. And a lot of people wouldn't remember this, but 30 years ago, this was a hot button issue. What are we going to call this new school? And everybody arguing, well, this is why you can't call it Hazleton. Some people saying Lower Luzerne County, some people naming it after people. And Fran Libonati came up, as only he could, he said, no. He said, I got the perfect name for it. He says, we're going to call it West Frieselton. And, you know, we just looked, and then it kicked in, West Frieselton. And there was some, you know, little smart pants guy that said, oh, okay, then what's going to be the nickname, you know, the Wildcats? And without missing a beat, he said, we'll be called the Wild Whippetiers. And that just, so now when that argument went on from the 70s. This land where the high school was purchased in the 70s. There were blueprints for the new school. That's why they built the Career Center where it is. And it went on that long. And then I started using that in my classroom, and the kids went crazy, and they loved it. I think to be a successful teacher, particularly in history, you got to be a good storyteller. And he was great. He was absolutely great. And then when I got to meet him on an adult level, the stories he told me about some of the legendary names in both sports education in the Hazleton area, you know, the Huey McGeeans, the Frank Serenis, you know, the stories were just unbelievable. He grew up with one of the great athletes of all time out of this area, Johnny Yacino, and telling me stories about him in his youth and other guys. He was a tremendous athlete on his own. Yeah. Never would talk about himself, though. He'd tell you about everybody else. This is a guy that went out to St. Francis D1 school and lettered 6 letters or something like that out there. Tremendous baseball player, great basketball player, won the Scotty Roman Award. You could never get him to talk about himself. He would only tell you about games, and he would tell you about others that he either played as teammates with or against. And he would just go on and on and on. And will miss him, and I will think about him almost every day of my life, particularly walking into these buildings. And he was special.
Today's news feature is brought to you by Workforce Resources, Inc. of Hazleton, in business since 2013, located in West Hazleton. If you're looking for a job, call them at 570-454-8810 and find out how you can apply for specific jobs, including skilled positions and warehousing. Full-time and part-time opportunities are available.